Where my girls at? Where my girls at? Independent, free spirit. Ooh, it's so serious. Where my girls at? We ain't linked up in a cool minute. Where my girls at? It's going down, down. Where my girls at? It's going down, down. It's going down tonight. We going out tonight. Yeah, right. We going out tonight. It's going down tonight. Yeah, right. It's going down tonight. We going out tonight. Yeah, right. We going out tonight. It's going down tonight. Yeah, right.
Girls said it's going down tonight. It's going down tonight on a Thursday. It's a thankful Thursday. And you are tuned into We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship on 910 a.m. The Superstation. We are based right here in Detroit, but we are heard all over the world. And I am your host today, Crisette Ellis from the D. I'm always excited. We're always excited to come to you Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you guys know we absolutely love it when you call us and give us your comments, even if it's different than our comments. We absolutely love when you call in and start some controversy, start some stuff. Even if you want to call in and be messy, we want you to call. You can call us at 313-778-7600. So today we're going to have a great show. There's so much going on in the world. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but we absolutely want to get to our guests and get to our show today. Today we're talking domestic violence. Stay woke. October, there are two things that we are made aware of in the month of October. Of course, we know October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it's also Domestic Violence Month. And so we had a breast cancer survivor. Barbara Bates was on a few weeks ago. And so we did not want the month to go by without talking about this very important issue of domestic violence. Now, you may be watching or listening and you have never been a victim of domestic violence, but I shouldn't say guarantee you, I'm sure many of you know individuals who have been in domestic violence situations. And I can tell you this, sometimes domestic violence is happening right up under our noses and we don't know it because we don't know the signs to look for. So maybe you know someone and maybe they are a little bit afraid or you want to help them. So call somebody, call a friend and tell them to come and listen to our show on today. We have a guest that knows everything about domestic violence. She was a domestic violence victim, and now she is an advocate. And of course, we're going to talk to our girlfriend, Gloria Mayfield Banks, who has not been silent about the domestic violence that she experienced in her life as well. So in a few minutes, we're going to bring on our guest. But before we do, let's just talk about some stuff that has been in the news today. When I tell you, I was kind of a little glued to CNN on today. It's been a while since I've just really have had an opportunity to watch. But the first thing is the Parkland shooting. They finally had the hearing where they decided, what the penalty was going to be, what they were going to do. And, I just sat there and my heart just went out to the parents and the families that were there who lost their loved ones, I believe in 2018. And, they read the person read what the jurors had said about each count. And, when you listen to it, and he was found guilty on all of them, but I could tell many of the family was looking for a death penalty. And that's not what they got today. So, you can be on one side of the issue or the other. Do you believe in the death penalty or do you not believe in the death penalty? Do you think That's a good question. You can call us and talk about that as well. Do you think Nicholas Cruz should have received the death penalty, or is life in prison good enough? So I'm going to toss it over to somewhere in Maryland. I don't know what her city is yet. Sabrina Goodwin Monday, what's going on in Baltimore?
Baltimore, baby, downtown Baltimore, the inner harbor right now. Today, that will change in a couple of weeks, but it is downtown Baltimore for now. All is good. Lots of rain today. Lots going on in the news. I mean, a lot's going on. And Trump, I guess we should talk about Parkland. That case rings near and dear. We used to live in Parkland, Florida. When we were in Florida, we were in Parkland. And so the church we attended, we lost a church member who several of the students went to Parkland High School. It was just one high school in Parkland. So we knew lots of the families deeply affected. And I have to say, I know that those families were deeply disturbed and wanted a different outcome. It's hard, so very hard. Chris, I don't even know what to say other than if it's your loved one. I know we're faith-filled, but do we believe in the death penalty, yes or no? Is that the question of the hour? Are you asking that question? I don't know. Some days I do and some days I don't. Some days I am faith-filled, saying God will take care of it all. And others, I'm like, why are we having a trial? Why are we spending taxpayers' dollars to go through all of this? Just throw the book and let it be. So I don't know. Gloria, what do you think? I don't know. I mean, I do know, but it's hard.
Well, I can tell you that, I'm not.
No volume, Gloria.
Uh-oh. Okay, so let me tell you something. I don't know. I feel like you do, Sabrina. Sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't. I missed that part of the news down here in Columbia. I'm thankful that we have a system that puts people who are qualified in charge of having to make that decision. And that is not the course I chose for myself, to make that decision about people. I don't even know what it's like to be in that situation where a family member, a loved one, somebody that I know, it don't have to be somebody that I know, somebody that I've seen, somebody that you know. I don't know what that's like. I know that I feel it very deeply, even if I just see it on the news. I mean, I feel it deep if I see it on the news. I feel it deep if I watch it in a movie and it's not even real. So I just can't imagine if it's a real family member. I just cannot imagine. I don't know for a fact that the death sentence will deter the problem that we have in the United States or around the world. I don't know that it's that much of a detriment, because the person who did it has already done what he's going to do. And so to be on the side of doing more of the same thing, it's a big deal. So I don't know that piece, but I really can't speak to that issue because I didn't see that part of the news today at all. What I did notice is that all of us got red lipstick, but one of us didn't get the memo of the black shirt. That's the part. So maybe I'm standing out for Domestic Violence Day. Okay, I'm standing up for Domestic Violence Day. So I don't know, but this is a very heavy time in the United States. That part I do know. That part I do.
Yeah, a very heavy time. We are absolutely missing our girlfriend Caterina. Caterina wasn't feeling so good today, so we're sending our thoughts and prayers to Caterina. So, we know how Caterina, she's probably laying down listening too. We got issues. So Caterina, we're thinking about you, and we know you'll probably be on the show with us tomorrow. Hey, we want to give a shout out to Joy Richards. She said, good morning, ladies from Brisbane, Australia. Wow, Australia is in the house. Well, good morning to you, Joy. Thank you so much for listening to and watching We Got Issues. Well, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Not going to spend a whole lot of time. Maybe we'll hit on the committee on the January 6th committee hearing on today. Lots was said, lots was shown that we didn't know before. So it's just going to be interesting to see where all of that goes. And I guarantee you it'll be in the news tomorrow and in the weeks to come. But for today, we are going to talk about domestic violence and staying woke. Before I bring our guest on, I want to read this quote by Sir Patrick Stewart. He said, domestic violence and violence against women does touch so many of us. It is not a private matter. It is protected by silence. Each of us must examine and change the ways in which our own behavior might contribute to, ignore, enable, or excuse all forms of violence. Wow. And that's a very powerful, powerful statement. And so I'm excited to bring to We Got Issues, Dr. LaDonna M. Combs. Bring her in, please, so that you guys can meet her, because this is going to be a great conversation. Let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. LaDonna Combs. She is a compassionate and effective leader and community organizer for over 20 years, direct service experience in communities of colors for victims of sexual and domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, human trafficking, and female genitalia mutilation. Expertise in creating multidisciplinary systems that respond effectively to the help-seeking behaviors of victims and survivors within the urban communities and faith-based organizations. She is an international trainer, educator, and grassroots organizer with skills leveraging federal and state grants, resources for over $2.5 million. And when I tell you, this is her passion. She is also the executive director at Greater Grace Temple for the Sisters Against Abuse Domestic Violence Project, which of course is a nonprofit organization. So, Dr. LaDonna, welcome to We Got Issues. We're so excited that you are all so busy schedule. So, you know what, let's go ahead and get started. We have a few minutes before we go to the break. Just kind of talk to our audience about, why you have a passion to help individuals that find themselves in domestic violence situations.
Well, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Thank you, First Lady Crisette, for having me on tonight. And yes, I am passionate about domestic violence prevention. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I'm passionate as a survivor, and it's to want other women who suffer in silence openly, because it's a crime hidden in plain sight, to get resiliency, healing, safety, and resources so they can make decisions about their own life and be in a safe place to raise their children. So I'm very, very passionate about it. Been doing this work now for 20 years. And even though 1 in 4 women will suffer domestic violence at some point in their lifetime, African-American women experience domestic violence at disproportionate rates in the United States. We're 47% higher than white women do. And so it made me more passionate about women of color and how they're marginalized around their stories, around believability, around sexual assault, and about how they can articulate those stories and be believed and not marginalized or be accused of being hyper postured around angry Black women or women who are uncontrollable, which are myths around her ability to negotiate a safe space where she lives.
Wow. So you know what? We're going to be going to a break in just a few minutes. So when we come back from the break, LaDonna, I want you to talk a little bit about, how you got out of your situation and how now you are, again, passionate about helping women that are in that situation. And then we're going to hear from our own Gloria Mayfield Banks, who was also a victim of domestic violence. You're listening to We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. We're talking domestic violence. Stay woke. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. Welcome back to We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship. We are talking domestic violence and staying woke. Our guest today is Dr. LaDonna Combs, and I am so excited to have her as our guest on today. And so right at the break, we were talking about her personal experience with domestic violence. So LaDonna, tell us a little bit about your experience, and did your family know about it? And then kind of talk to us about some signs that, you know, we should look for, because sometimes it's happening right up under our noses and we don't even have a clue. So talk to us a little bit about yours and about some of the signs that we should be looking at.
I was married 20 years ago to a corrections officer, and I really thought I had found the person. I thought I had found my dad. My dad was like a soft-spoken person. I mean, he taught me everything as a little girl I needed to know about everything. He was attentive, you know, taught me how to tie my shoes, drive a car, fly a kite, write my name. He was just involved. And I met this man who, you know, was in the church as well. and I thought I had met, the man of my dreams, but he wasn't. And the signs were, I tell you, many predators or batterers, they start to love bomb. So they'll love bomb you, like, you've got all their attention. They want to, kind of isolate you from your friends, and, they don't just get enough time to spend. They work so much. They want all your time. They love you so much, and they buy you things. And sometimes they're even more religious, than you are, just to let you think, that these things are, what you really want in a husband. I didn't know anything about domestic violence growing up. And so I thought that's what I had found my dream boat, until he was like, well, keeping tabs on me and asking me who I was on the phone with, and kind of isolating me from my girlfriends, telling, your single girlfriends, you hang out with them too much. But I had just as many married girlfriends, or their husbands pay a little bit too much attention to you when we go to dinner, and all these type of things. And I was like, these are the people that we've been dating. We've been around all these people the whole time we were dating. You were fine with them. And then, we get married, and now you're not fine with them anymore. And, I'm just very controlling, over my health care, over whether I went to a female or male doctor or not. All of a sudden, that was a problem, over what the kids, he had 3 kids and I had a daughter, and over how much attention that his kids, paid to me, or if I stood up for them, like, oh, they can have a little more of this, that, or, they're going to run over you. He had the most beautiful kids, but it was a control. It's about power and control. He had it and I didn't, and so, and I loved him very much. I thought this was who God had sent me, and that's what it is about. Victims have an endless supply of hope. And so it wasn't like he was hitting me all the time. It was like it happened the one time that it happened, but it was so brutal that I knew I wouldn't be able to sustain it anymore. I thought I would have to have stitches in my face, and the Lord allowed me not to happen. I did lose partial vision in my left eye, so that I'm legally blind in my left eye now. But if it wasn't for the shelter that I went to, I didn't know anything about personal protection orders at the time. I thought I could stay in my home. We had a beautiful home, 5-bedroom, 4 floors in Jackson, Michigan, near the airport. It was beautiful. But every time I pulled up in the driveway after that incident, even though the police had taken him off, I wanted to throw up. I just would shake in any parts of the house. I couldn't be there. So, and he tried to break in the house one evening. I mean, nobody had ever tried to break in before, so I assumed it was him, because he was there was a warrant out for his arrest after I left the hospital, and he fled the city. And so they were looking for him. And so I ended up going into a shelter. And when you think about a shelter, you don't want to go into a shelter like, I don't want to go into a shelter. Shelters are, for homeless people, and what kind of people are, but it was the best thing that I ever did. I felt safe there. It was beautiful there. It was a home donated. That was a historical home. The women there were very understanding, but I was there so long that people began to thought I worked there. You're only supposed to stay there for 30 days. And I was there for so long because the judge gave me a stay because he fled the city and they couldn't find him, and he had threatened to take my life. So they let me stay. But as I was there, I began to see the things you could and couldn't do in a shelter for victims. Like back then, you couldn't pray in a shelter. You'd get thrown out. Back then, there are a lot of things you couldn't do, and a lot has evolved, and a lot of the rules have changed in the way in which women can have autonomy as they, go to a shelter, because they go to a shelter to take the control away from the batterer. But then you get there and then the shelter has control. So really you just switch partners. Now the shelter is oppressing you for trying to get, better. And so those rules, a lot of them have changed. A lot of money has changed hands. And at this point, I'm funded by the Office on Violence Against Women. And I've been able to go to Washington at least 4 times to negotiate and talk about the autonomy of women, especially women of color. And a lot we've gotten more funding because of that.
Let me stop you there. We're going to come back to, some of the laws that have been changed and, some of the money that you've been able to get to help domestic violence victims. But I want to shift real quickly and talk to Gloria, because I know Gloria is also a outspoken advocate for women who are going through domestic violence. And so, Gloria, just tell us a little bit of your story, and can you talk a little bit too about how sometimes domestic violence, people that aren't in domestic violence, they think, yeah, what you should have known. Why didn't you just walk away? Come on, you smart, you intelligent, you're a Harvard graduate. How did it happen to you? Because sometimes I think people in their mind have an image of what those ladies look like. They don't look like me. They look like a certain segment of society. So talk to us a little bit about that, Gloria.
Well, I would love to. And Dr. LaDonna, thank you so much. I would love to. Dr. LaDonna, thank you so much for bringing this message to light every day, not just Domestic Violence Day. Chris, a great topic. Right. And I thought so much about some of the things you said. You said women who have been in domestic violence have an endless supply of hope. And that's one of the reasons, Chris, that they stay. They're optimistic, hopeful, deep, loving people. They don't want to be the one that breaks away. There's a personality. But here's what I also want everybody to know. There's a couple things. Number one out of every 3 women has either been in domestic violence or seen somebody in domestic violence or has been a participant in some way that someone has talked to them about their domestic violence. But it is a very, very, very prevalent problem. And we're surprised by how prevalent it is, because the biggest issue with domestic violence is the silence. Nobody wants to talk about it. And that's why, Chris, people think they look a certain way, they act a certain way, they come from a certain background, because all that they know is what they've seen on TV or in a movie. And so it's not that. And then, Dr. LaDonna, she and I are probably have different spectrums of what domestic violence is. She lost sight in part of her eye, and she had to go to a home, and that wasn't my case. My case was such that it was a very scary case. It was like I lived in a dark home. When you were outside the home, just like she said, your beautiful home, beautiful relationship, powerful man, very successful, blah, 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 blah. Everybody else saw them as Mr. Personality. They are just amazing at that stuff, which gives a woman who has an endless supply of hope a very faster, deeper way of falling in love with them and thinking that there can't be anything different. And we had something very much in common, Dr. LaDonna, because my father was, some of us describe our daddies as our perfect dad. He was just wonderful. I didn't see it. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know where that was coming from. Divorce wasn't even part of the reality in my family. I didn't know what was going on. So that also put a little bit of silence on it, because when you're a very accomplished, professional, smart woman, you believe that you can handle it. If I can change this, and I can change that, and I can change this, and I can change that. And then you have to talk about the courage. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to go to a shelter. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to acknowledge that you're even in that situation. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to recognize that there's something in front of you that you can't deal with. Like, you could deal with this, and you could deal with that, and you can fix this, and you can fix that. Why can't I fix that? This is after you go through years of changing your personality, changing how you dress, changing how you open up the door, changing when you speak. Don't know what if you speak, they'll get mad at you. If you look at them a certain way, they'll get mad at you. If the bill comes in a certain way, they don't look. And the degrees of anger, it goes from a black eye to a push you to an embarrassment to I can't even articulate what a massive issue this is when it stays in such silence. We haven't even talked about the generational piece of it. It's a very serious thing. When I went to the Senate and spoke on the floor about the problem I was bringing to light was that it affects the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And then when you don't come from that generation, you don't even understand it, because it's silent. There's no education about it. There's no education about domestic violence still. Okay, I know, music.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is such a great conversation that absolutely needs to be had. We can no longer be silent about domestic violence. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, what can a woman do if she finds herself in a domestic violence situation? Is there a number that she can call? How can she get the help that she needs? You're listening to We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship on 9:10 a.m. The Superstation. We'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
We're back. You're watching and listening to We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship. And our guest today is Dr. LaDonna Combs, and we're talking domestic violence. Stay woke. So right at the break, I asked Dr. Combs if she would talk to us about women and talk to us a little bit about what are some things that they can do if they find themselves in a domestic violence situation.
Well, statistically, statistics report that most women who are experiencing some form of domestic violence usually discloses to a trusted person, a friend, or they'll convey some things to them about what's going on. And what I can say is when they do that, don't say, if someone does tell you that, you need to get out, you need to leave, you need to get out of the situation. And they know that. It's just that they need a safety plan to get out, because more than 75% of women are killed, especially in the African American community, after they've left, not when they stay. Lethality rises after they've gone. So you have to have a safety plan. And the thing is, from other women, I would say, when someone says something, and I agree with Gloria, when you are married to somebody charismatic, a life of the party, somebody who's taking care of his children, somebody who's got resources, and you hide that for a long time, many times people don't believe you. You're like, what, him? He's taking you on, but you're on vacation. He just bought you a new Benz. What do you mean? What do you mean? The thing you should do is believe her. If she discloses that this is happening to her, believe them. And also have them call, if not the National Network to End Domestic Violence or the Domestic Violence Hotline. Every state, most states in the United States has a domestic violence coalition. They'll be able to tell you where the nearest shelter is, the nearest resource is, the nearest sexual assault or SANE provider. A SANE provider is a sexual assault nurse examiner who will give you medications and medical treatment and do a rape kit. And you don't even have to call the police or prosecute the person, depending on who they are. Sometimes women aren't ready to do that up front, but your coalition will give you in your state where you can go for those resources.
Yeah, Dr. Donna, thank you so much for being here and giving us the information, the education. Thank you, Gloria, for always being open and sharing your story, because we know it's not easy to talk about. We know that even when you talk about it, we see the pain, we feel it. Just to have to talk about it is not easy. But I mean, imagine, I was reading something the other day, and they said that most domestic violence cases are not reported. So can you imagine how many women are suffering in silence with nowhere to go? I mean, Gloria has told us over the years that her sisters didn't know, her best friends didn't know, her mom didn't know, and she was talking to us every day. And so at some point, how do we just break that stigma down to tell our women it's okay to share? Well, I mean, it's not an embarrassment. You got to cry out for help and know that there's help for you. I'm so grateful that we now have safe houses all over the country for women that women don't even know exist, but there is somewhere for you to go. So I just think we have to be loud about it. And I also read a stat that said every 9 seconds in the US, a woman is assaulted or beaten. What is,
every 9 seconds.
Every 9 seconds in the US, a woman is assaulted or beaten. And so as a society, where are we? Why are we so angry? Why is there such angst, such hatred, or such low self-esteem that we have to beat the people that we proclaim to love? What is it? What is the root of it all?
You're asking me or Gloria? Are you talking to me?
Anybody who can give me an answer. Anybody.
Well, it's not an angry or a hatred issue, because if it was, the person would be punching the mailman, they'd be punching their boss, they'd be punching other people, they'd be punching people at the family picnic, they'd be punching people at counters at McDonald's. It's called intimate partner violence because they reserve that behavior for the person that they're sleeping with, the person that they're intimate with. So it's very controlled. It's about power and control. One person has it and the other person doesn't. And sometimes as women, we internalize their anger, their behavior. What can I do? What did I say? How can I make things better for him? He's having a real hard time at work. Oh my God, being an African-American man is really hard. Oh, there's a lot of social injustice and for everybody. But he chooses to do that only to his intimate partner violence. When it comes to sex, and sexual assault, I always ask people that are in some of our classes, who's had sex in this class before? Yay, I have. I said, okay, everybody's had sex. So who wants to stand up and give their best sexual experience they've ever had? Just tell how great it was one time. And nobody says anything. But yet we expect women who've had the worst sexual experience to sexually assaulted to stand up and tell us blow by blow what happened. Something as heinous, and we can't talk about even the best parts of that because she doesn't believe she's going to be believed. So they won't tell.
Right.
It's the most underreported crime in the nation is domestic violence and sexual assault. It's the best kept secret because who's going to believe me? That's what we get all the time.
Dr. LaDonna, can you touch a little
We
bit?
can't hear
more
you,
about-
Gloria.
Oh, sorry, I don't want you to have the static. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more, Dr. LaDonna, about the fact that people don't even talk about how heinous the act is. You know, as education, it's even hard for us to stand up in the places where they should be talked about, in the classroom, in the church, in the book clubs. You know, it's you look at a person and you can't really grab your mind that she endured this or that fabulous person did that to her, but it's also what happened to them. Like one time we got in such an argument, the curler dropped in my eyeball and I burnt my eyeball. And I started screaming so much that he stopped the argument to take me to the, emergency. But the fact that you get into such an argument that you burn your eyeball, but if you tell people that, they can't compute. They can't hear it. They can't identify with it. They can't understand it. It's, the degree is so unfamiliar with people, and people are uncomfortable with things that are unfamiliar.
Right. Every year,
I understand.
1 in 3 women, the 1 in 3 women who is a victim of homicide is murdered by her current or former partner. How can love go so wrong, so bad, so... Go ahead, Dr. LaDonna, but that stat, I mean, murdered 1 of 3 by their partner.
Well, a lot of it, like I think Gloria was saying as well, has a lot to do with historical trauma too, generational trauma. It depends on what kind of home you were raised into and how people normalize violence as children in their household as well. If your parents, that's what they did, fight, or if your mother, had to live through domestic violence as a child, most men and women who become adults begin to internalize that as being part of a relationship too. It's a learned behavior. So it has to be unlearned. And really, batterers intervention programs, there's not much research on the longevity of how that works because it takes, some are 26 weeks and most of them are court ordered because most batterers are not going to say, I'm a batterer, it's her fault. She's always, tripping, or she's going through this, or she's on medication. And so it takes more than 26 weeks to unlearn something that's been ingrained in you since a child. That's just one segment of it. And another thing, it's almost like a job. You go on a job and you have a horrible boss and you're demeaned at work and you're passed over for a promotion and you do the work and somebody else puts their name on it and take it. Well, why don't you just quit? Okay, but if I quit, how am I going to eat? And it's the same thing with in a marriage. Why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? Why are you staying in that? Number one, she's not breaking the law by staying. He's breaking the law by hitting her. And number two, where is she going to go? Where are her and her 3 kids going to go? 5 kids going to go? She's sometimes given up, put her career on hold to stay home with her children. And really domestic violence increases another 25% statistically when the woman is pregnant. When she's pregnant, domestic violence increases.
That's a whole nother talk.
Wow, while she's pregnant. And LaDonna, we have a call on the line, and Bernetta, we'll come to you. We're ready to go to break, so we'll come to you right after the break. So hold on. But I want to talk when we come back from the break about how much of domestic violence is learned behavior. Learned behavior. And then sometimes, with women, if they've seen it in their house, they gravitate to someone who is an abuser. But then there are a lot of instances like you and Gloria, you all didn't see it in your house and you still ended up with an abuser. So I want to kind of talk about a little bit of those issues right after this break. You guys are listening to We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship. We're talking domestic violence. Stay woke. We'll be right back after this break. All right, we are coming back, and this is our last segment of the show. It just goes by so quickly. Before we go to our caller, we absolutely want to give out the domestic violence hotline, and that number is 1-800-799-7233. Again, that's 1-800-799-7233. All right, let's go to our caller. Bernitha, are you there?
Oh, hello. I'm right here. Thank you for this discussion, because people do not talk about it. And by not talking about it, it gives tacit permission for them to go ahead and do what they do. There are resources out there that a lot of people are not aware of. There is an app called the Expire app free on both Android and iPhone. That gives you access to resources. You know, it links you up to hotlines, shelters in your area. That's all the services. And it has an automatic feature that lets you automatically send a help message out to law enforcement and anybody else you choose in your close circle. And that's Aspire, ASPIRE going on. Yes, Aspire, ASPIRE. It's from the When Georgia Smiles Foundation from Robin McGraw.
Wow, that's powerful.
Wow, that's powerful. Bonita, thank you so much. We just have a few minutes left. I want to close with our guest. Thank you so much for calling and giving us that information.
So if you have any family or friends or individuals who you may think need to be able to get messages out, the Aspire app, ASPIRE. Thank you so much. I didn't know about that app. So thank you so much for bringing it to We Got Issues, Bernita. Have a great day. Thank you for calling. LaDonna, we're going to come back to you. We have a few more minutes before we close out. So, just talk to us a little bit about where we are right now when it comes to shelters. How readily available are there shelters for women to get checked into? What is that process? Is it difficult? Is it easy? So talk to us about what women can do if they're trying to get the help that they need.
Well, yeah, shelters are very important. Really, over 90% of women who are homeless have been involuntarily displaced by violence, and especially in the African American community. And the unfortunate thing is that most shelters by the 3rd or the 4th of every month are full, especially in the wintertime. They are, so it's hard to find resources for women that really need to leave, especially when you have multiple children. It's really hard for us to find places for them. So now what we have funding for, I've put women over the past 3 years, I've been able to negotiate with hotels, and we have a tab there that the federal government will pay for them. And so I put women in hotels when the shelters are full. We send women out county. I have a relationship with counties outside of Southeastern Michigan. And there is money that will transport women to other cities, over 100 miles away to get them safety. And the good thing about it is George Bush, when he signed No Child Left Behind, he put the McKinney-Vento Act in place, which means every school in the country has a pot of money to send transportation for your children to keep them in their district so they can go to school every day without anybody knowing that they're out of the city and in a shelter. And so you can go in the school. Nobody knows about that pot of money. There have been some litigation around, change of domicile. The batterer says you're kidnapping my children or what have you. But if she has a personal protection order, which she can get and get him served, she has to leave because she doesn't feel safe. There's money in every school district to make sure a child stays in her system or his system to go to school every day. So, but shelters are always full. We're always finding ways to try to keep women safe. Unfortunately, during COVID, I had a lot of drinking too much. I had some pop over here, washing down a pretzel. During COVID, I had several victims that lived in their cars. There were no place else for them to go. Shelters were so full, and the thing and it was a great thing that governor here in Michigan said, stay home and stay safe. But where do you go when home is not a safe place to stay, when all the violence is there? So we had to come up with ways to keep women safe. And they stayed in their cars. We negotiated police officers. We negotiated people driving by. We negotiated food and blankets, and we negotiated warming centers for them. And that gets complicated when they have children, because then, we try not to get child protective services involved. Sometimes you do, because the first thing they want to do with African American women is put their children in foster care, and because they're trying to protect them. So we try to come up with a whole lot of ways. African American women in general, but especially African American women, are very resilient around parenting and being with their children. The shelter has changed. There was a time when if she got into the shelter and her kids are running around and she's just sitting there, she's not saying it, she's not disciplining them. We found out research that she's been in such a fall trying to protect them from violence in the home that once she gets safe, she's like decompressing. And we find that after we watch her for another week, she's totally engaged with her children. She's totally caring, something she hasn't been able to do at home because she's surviving the violence, trying to walk on eggshells and protect them. So the help-seeking behaviors of victims have really been looked at in the Black community, and shelters are very important. Unfortunately, we don't have enough of them.
LaDonna, in the last minute before we end, tell us, what can we do to support homeless shelters? I know the weather is changing around the country. What are some things that we can do to support these shelters, or, other places that deal with a lot of women dealing with domestic violence?
Where you can always be a resource is really good. You can be a resource. You can provide a safe place for women to come together and talk about their issues, and in a non-biased, safe place where they can talk about. Believe it or not, when women get together, they have more resources than they even know about helping other women and where they can go. It's like an underground railroad almost, but. You can volunteer, find a shelter you can volunteer at, or you can donate to that would help, and who has already something in place where they can send women to hotels, and there's discretionary money where you can meet with them and talk to them about how you'd like that money spent. You can give money to shelters and then talk about, I'd like this money spent
LaDonna,
this way.
LaDonna, oh my God, so many ideas of what we can do to help. I hear the music and I don't want them to cut us off, but thank you so much for just shedding more light on domestic violence. And yes, there's some things that we can do. We got to stay woke, and we can absolutely support shelters so that women will know that in our community, we absolutely are not sleeping, but we are woke, and we are here to support them. You guys, thank you for listening to We Got Issues. We'll be here tomorrow from 6 to 7 p.m. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for sharing, Gloria.